Welcome back to another episode of the Teacher Nerds Podcast. I'm Ron Nober.
I'm Joe DiPaolo.
I am a technology teacher, 3rd grade to 8th grade.
And I teach 3rd grade.
And today our guest is Marisa Thompson. Marisa from California. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here, guys.
Yeah, this was a long time coming. We had a few times we had to cancel. I had power outages. I mean, it was a crazy experience. I think this was supposed to happen 3 weeks ago or something.
Yeah. We got it. We got it figured out.
Yeah, we got it. Hey, better late than never, right?
That's right.
So Marisa, do you just want to, introduce yourself to the audience and tell them a little bit about you?
So my name is Marisa Thompson. I'm a high school English teacher in San Diego, California. I also do professional development work for the University of San Diego. And I speak and blog and coach and do teacher support and innovation and everything else that we could possibly do. Just write everything. We all do everything. Right. And then I guess, as I'm sure we'll dive into, my philosophy is that we can really improve things even within the box that we've been given, for teachers and for students, both. It doesn't have to be either or. So that's what I'm about.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So as always, we usually start our episodes with a little icebreaker. We call that 2 yes more, 1 no way. And, Joe, you had texted me last night about this as a topic. So do you want to introduce?
Yeah, I forget what I was watching, but they talked about, it was Wolf of Wall Street. And they were talking about, where are we going to summer? And I started thinking, man, wouldn't that be great? Like I could
have that
here.
Issue.
Yeah, I could winter here. So I thought, what a great topic for our conversation with Marisa.
I love it. And that's actually, I have to say, when you guys text me, I was like, that, absolutely that. Yeah. So I grew up in a middle income household, but my mom worked for the airlines. So I've actually traveled a ton because we could travel for free.
Yeah, that's awesome.
I've been to like over 20 countries and I've been all over. My work passion is education, but my own personal passion is travel. So I was like, oh my gosh, that's
it.
So right now, the plan is, of course, we're all working so much this summer, right? Especially this summer. So just little trips, day trips. We'll probably go up to the Redwoods in Northern California. We're going camping, beach camping this week, pardon me. So probably pretty local this summer. But my goal in the next few years is to get a condo in Hawaii, like everybody else, right?
Right.
So then during the summer, I could go be with my family there for like a month, and then we would rent it out during the rest of the school year. So that's like the ultimate dream that might be somewhat attainable.
Okay.
But the ultimate dream, I took students with a couple teacher friends. We took students to Thailand and Cambodia and Vietnam a few years ago. And Cambodia is just incredible. Like I was more excited about Thailand and Vietnam. And then I got to Cambodia and I was like, what is going on here? This is amazing. So the dream would be like Cambodia or Indonesia, Southeast Asia. Something.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. The dream spot.
What was it that hooked you?
I've been to Asia a few times, and Cambodia has a really interesting history, good and bad. And so we did Angkor Wat and, all these beautiful historical sites. But then there's also this, because it was heavily influenced by the French. So it's this blend of like Asian culture and French.
Oh, wow.
And it's really neat. It's extremely safe. And there were times like in Bangkok, we're like, hey, we don't go there, but we do go here,
Right.
But Cambodia, they're like, you are absolutely safe here. And you can go wander around and do whatever you like to do. And the food was amazing. And it was just, I don't know, it was just really,
awesome.
Really nice.
Cool.
So if you get a chance.
Yeah. It's a little more distant for us on the East Coast to get to, but
you could go the other way.
Yeah, right.
Go up and over.
Yeah. Now, what about a no way, like where you're just not interested?
So I've never been to the Grand Canyon. If you want to appreciate, like, I'm in California. I've never been to the Grand Canyon. So my husband was like, we should take an RV to the Grand Canyon. I'm like, in July? Like, what? Why would we do that? No. So definitely not the desert during the summer. And I know a lot of people do, and more power to you.
Yeah.
But
they made a movie about
not
it.
For me. I don't want to do it, you know. So I'm anywhere there's water, I'm good. But I'm not desert at all. Yeah.
Cool. I can appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Ron, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So I'm not a beach person. Like I'm just, you know, like I can appreciate the beach.
Yeah.
Right. Like, but to just sit on the beach, like I am a pasty white dude. It is not.
You're wearing your socks with your sandals.
Pasty white, right? Like, yeah, it is not a good mix.
Yes.
So I like Cape Cod, New England. Okay. You know, so my wife's brother has a house in Cape Cod, so we go there quite often, and it's kind of a cool mix of the beach, and then you can feel like you're in the mountains in 10 minutes. You know, you're deep in the woods, and it's just a cool mix. So Cape Cod would definitely be one. If I could spend the summer in Cape Cod, I'd be really happy. And then the other would be in Maine. You know, kind of same area, but Maine has that cool rocky coast, and you know it's not too hot, and lobster. You know, like lobster rolls. Like I love a good.
You like seafood, huh, Ron?
Yeah, yeah. A nice clam bake and all that. So that would be my two yes mores: Maine, Cape Cod, and then my no way would have to be like the Caribbean. You know, spending a summer in the Caribbean. It's already hot enough in New Jersey. Like it is just not my thing. I know Marissa's like, over here. Are you crazy?
I'm losing it, but that's okay.
Hey, like, right? That's vanilla chocolate strawberry, right?
That's it.
That's right. I love it.
All right, Joe.
Well, this is. I've been thinking a lot about this, especially after the last 3 months. It's been so crazy. And the day I had today, you know, Marissa, it's funny you talking about going camping. I was like, you know what? We have the Appalachian Trail that, you know, runs, and there's a couple spots that are within probably 20 minutes that we could drive there and hop on. I'm like, I was having such a bad day. I'm like, maybe I just need to grab a sleeping bag, a tent, and spend 2 days just walking up and down the trail. But that's not my two yes mores though.
Still sounds good, right?
No, well, you know what? I started thinking, like, could I really even do that? Like, because I've never experienced anything like, been camping, but I've never just grabbed things and gone and have not had just everything checked off. Like, this is where we're going to stop and, you know, we'll refill here and, you know, get supplies there. Definitely something I always wanted to do. But if it was, you know, after summer break, one of my first places would be any place with waist-high waves. I don't care if the water's warm. I don't care if the water's cold. I don't care if it's my friends. I don't care if it's just myself. I want to go someplace and you know, bring my favorite longboard. It's 9 feet and a single fin, and just spend all day just surfing. And Ron, you know, I'll wear sunscreen. I'll wear a big bucket hat.
That's right.
Because I don't like to get sunburn either. But that's just you know, it's something that's soothing to my soul. And right now it's like I think that's something that could be very beneficial to me, where I'm at. Second place would be kind of the opposite. I've been watching on Instagram. I follow a lot of snowboarding posts. I want to know where you can go snowboard now in a t-shirt. Like to me, I love that. Can you do that in California?
You can come to California. We'll make sure that you get there. Yeah, when I ski, I don't snowboard. That was a bad day. But but yeah, I take the jacket off. Everything goes. I might be in a sweater. But yeah, a t-shirt for sure. You need to move out here, Joe.
I'm telling you.
Joe.
You could go snowboarding and then be surfing.
That's what I love. I love that whole concept. So those are my two yeses and my one no. And you know what I was going to say? Asia. And you just totally talked it up.
It's
But
amazing.
and I think it's just because it's so foreign to me. Like
Yeah.
it's almost like, I don't want to say scary, but you know, I don't know it, and
It's
I'm
just
definitely,
overwhelming, I would think, you know,
and
like,
just
yeah.
with sensory overload. I think with
Yeah.
people, and not being a people person. Like I think China, and if all of Asia is like China, I feel as if I would be. I don't like cities. I don't like people and crowds of people. So my anxiety would be
So
through
I'm
the
so
roof.
glad you're in the classroom.
You know?
Great. There's nothing like a teacher who's like, I don't like people. I don't want to
Not
be around
people.
people.
I meant like
I don't-
crowds.
Okay.
People are okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I don't consider kids people. Like I don't like adults.
So,
I know this
hey,
is bad.
write
Let's
down that
start
quote.
over.
That's a good
Yeah,
quote.
yeah, that's
Joe.
coming out as the quote of the episode. I don't consider kids people.
Kids aren't people. Good. I'm
What
really
was
glad
that?
that we were able to do this.
Our one episode was it was hashtag meat juice from that. We did a 2 yes no more 1 no way burgers,
Okay.
and meat juice came up like multiple times. So this is
French tips. French
yeah.
tips.
Oh, French tips. Yeah. The au jus, the whole
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah,
I know what I'm talking about. Yeah.
yeah.
That's funny. Joe, I'm going to send you pictures of Asia. I'm going to send you because I understand that feeling. There's that claustrophobia.
Right.
Because we have a different, than a lot of other cultures, we have a very different, like, personal space bubble, which is even bigger now, right? Like, we've got like a 6-foot bubble now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it is definitely different. And then even just the culture shock of, I don't recognize any letters.
Right.
It's a little
right.
overwhelming, you know. But I get it.
Well,
But I'm gonna sell you on it, especially with surfing and with waves.
you know, it's scary though. I enjoy food, and what scares, you know, I've been out of the country before, and that's one of my hang-ups is trying new foods, and I'm not, how do I put, like, I'm almost afraid of things, and
Yeah.
you know, I know what I like, and I'm not very adventurous when it comes to eating. So it's just it was one of those things, and as soon as you started talking, I'm like, oh man, she's gonna rip me apart.
I am. And
She's gonna
not
think
only am I
I'm-
going to rip you apart, I'm putting down here Asia pictures to Joe and recipes, because we have a bunch of pictures of all of our food and everything. I actually, I just recently, for my mom's birthday, because we're all about food too, but we're also all about travel, we just did a virtual online cooking class from Sri Lanka, and they taught us how to make curry for 2 hours.
That's awesome.
So I was like, it's amazing. It's $7, and it was so much fun. But okay, I'm sorry. And then so Joe's no is Asia. Okay.
So you're gonna change my mind. I'm open for that.
Okay, all right, that's good. That's a good.
Yeah, and
first
I
step.
like I said, like Thailand is one of my bucket list places. Like Thailand or Japan even is like a bucket list place for me.
Yeah, amazing places.
Yeah, that's awesome that you've gotten to travel that much.
Yeah,
very
I'm
cool.
very lucky, and I have to say that was one of the biggest things. Like when I became a mom, was the withdrawals I would have to go through it not traveling for a few years at least.
Right.
And so it's been tough, but I'm looking forward to that in the future.
How
like
old
the
are your
next 5
years?
years. 6 and 4.
Okay, so yeah.
Or rather, like 17 and 2. You know, so just right there where I'm like, why are you? What is happening right now? You know, you seem like my high school students, and I don't know what you're doing. You know, but yeah, they're super fun, and we're ready to get them out into the world.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
My son's. Oh, I'm sorry. Ron.
Go, Joe.
I was just gonna say my son's 14, and we took him to Costa Rica when he was 8, and we went over Christmas. But the July before that, we took him to Disney World, and I said, you know, what'd you like better? And he goes, Costa Rica.
That's my kind of kid.
And I thought, you know what? You know, you give the kid at 8 years old Disney World or you know, out of the country, and I was shocked. But the experiences, just to see him take it all in, was really cool.
Yeah, that's really neat. I haven't been to Costa Rica yet. That's on the list.
Yeah, that's a fun one, and it's so. I mean, besides the ticket there, it's so inexpensive.
Yeah.
So inexpensive.
Yeah.
But that's definitely that's a good one to go.
We could do an entire episode just on this.
I was just going to say, like,
Teacher nerds
I'm
travel.
super into it.
Yeah.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Yep.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That was a fun one. We had a lot of laughs during that.
Sorry, was that supposed to be short?
Listen, I consider kids people.
Okay, good.
I just want to get that on the record.
Yeah, and you can stay in the classroom then. I'm fine with you.
Yeah. And you are a people person when it comes to, it's just the crowds. You're like, we're kind of two peas in a pod a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
I grew up in Philadelphia in the inner city, and now I live on a dirt road in the middle of the country.
Chickens and cows.
Yeah, like
Ron will look out his window.
Joe Fro.
And there'll be cows walking down the road.
Yeah, like we have nightly a peacock from the neighbors comes up and visits, and every once in a while a cow will get out, and my wife will be sitting on the couch and she'll be like, there's a cow on the road. Okay,
Yeah, he's back.
Yeah, right. It's just normal,
That's so fun.
But yeah, I think that's the people, like that tight, city type.
City.
Thing, yeah.
Yep. City.
Yeah. All right. So I guess let's get into our episode. So I guess, Marisa, I contacted you because you had put out a really cool video of you doing, I guess, almost like a class, with solutions for distance learning.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
That's how we got in touch. You had thrown that out there, and I contacted you, and so I guess we've just ended our school years. This episode's going to air when I guess schools are beginning, just before. So what would you say are some of the lessons that you picked up on for remote learning?
So I have to say, first, my professional development courses that I do are all online. They're 100% online. So I've been doing that for about 5 years, 6 years. And then I am a people person, but I love discussions with my students. I adore my students, even the tough ones, right? So the idea of moving from my high school class to online, even though I was used to teaching online and offering feedback to adults online, it was a really hard time for me as a high school teacher, especially because I consider our course to be discussion based. Like all my assessments, my number one assessment is through discussion. And I think it's like the ultimate life skill, like that's why we're in class, right? So if nothing else from remote learning, really being able to see the value and joy in the classroom environment and being with people and having discussions. We sit here, we're kind of getting used to it now through a Zoom or through a Meet, but it's really different to be talking about topics that are so important to discuss, especially right now, right? And topics that are so important to us as a country and as a global community are so important to us personally and important to our soul. That's hard to do through a Hangout or through a Zoom, and not to be able to read someone's energy and someone's body language and really have that sense of community when you don't have everyone in one space. So that was something that one of the first things that my students said that they realized was how much they missed being in that room and having those discussions. And it is a special thing. And one student did get back and they're like, I just realized that we don't get to finish it. We don't get to finish these discussions that we've started together. And I was like, it breaks my heart, but I came to that realization a lot earlier than you did, and I understand. So for me, that is number one, that school is a place where discussions happen. And that's like that training ground for the type of world we want to have.
Right.
Or it can be that way, right? School can be that way. I think that's one thing. But I think it's really pushed a lot of people to really consider what their assessments are. If you can't have a quiz and you can't have a test and you can't have a discussion, what are you about? you know, and what are you going to ask the students to do? So I think those are conversations worth having. The whole, you know, I don't know if it was nationwide, but at least California, that was great. Our grading system was a no harm grading system. Did you guys have that?
I've never heard it called. I mean, we did pass fail, like it was just strictly pass fail.
Yeah, and so for us, it was there, but there was a phrase that we used here in California of a do no harm grading
Wow.
system, and
Okay.
it made me go, I like that we prefer that we not harm people, but
Right.
the fact that our old grading system would be the harmful one.
Right. Well, right. That's what's implied, right? If this is do
Yeah.
no harm, the other
Yes.
one causes some kind of
Causes harm.
Right.
And it's
Right.
like, wait, I have a real problem with, okay, I'm glad that we've brought this up. Can we pull at this a little bit? So really talking about grading systems, really talking about what our purpose is as educators, the idea that some of our practices are harmful.
Right.
Intentionally, unintentionally, you know, and other things like, we knew that these were problems before COVID. We knew that there were problems. And then
Right.
as soon as we go into this pandemic, you know, experience for education, then all of a sudden it's like, oh, these are real problems that we need to solve right away. And it's like, you know what, if we had just solved them when we realized the problem,
Right.
we would have been fine by now.
So are you talking about like disparity?
Yeah, the
You know, like-
digital divide,
Yeah.
you know, the disparity even between courses or sites or within the district, but anything where you're like, the kids don't have food during the summer or the winter break, and
Right.
so we kind of help out there, but what happens if, you know, or all of those, yes, getting technology into the hands of students, the fact that our students don't have Wi-Fi, why is Wi-Fi not a right,
Right.
like water or electricity? And there are, of course, places in our country where that's not, it doesn't seem to be
Right.
right
That's
either.
not, either. Yeah.
So it's like, look, if we can identify that the problem exists, instead of waiting until it's exacerbated, why don't we just fix it?
Right.
We have smart people.
Right.
Excuse me. So lots of little lessons, I think, but then also just the bringing up of these topics.
Well, I think one of the ones that I think when we talked to Laura Spencer that Cheer brought up that we, you know, agree, you know, if you're getting rid of state testing,
Yeah.
Are you saying it's not that important?
Right.
You know, so like, what about all the finances
Yeah.
that go into state testing? How could that be reallocated for things like Wi-Fi or devices or food?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
for sure.
And it's the same thing with grades. We don't need letter grades all of a sudden.
Right.
Right. Right.
That was quick.
Right.
You know? So if I find it fascinating, and I hope that the conversations continue, that we don't go back to normal. Like we keep
Right.
talking about when we go back to normal, it's like, cool, I'm fine with, I want to go back to normal too. I want to see my students, you know?
Right.
Right. Well,
But-
when you say go back to normal, you want to go back to the classroom.
Right.
Yes.
In a classroom.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
the normal you want.
Yes, and I think that, but the fact when we start bringing them all into the topic of back to normal, I don't want to go back to normal.
No.
I want to go back
Right.
to my class.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're
So-
almost I think people need we need to have that conversation of just we're not talking about normal. We're talking about, like you said, back in the classroom. The
Yeah.
normal wasn't great.
No,
you know?
evidently not, right?
Right.
But it was easy, right? And that's
Right.
why change was hard because
Right.
in order to change things, and not that Ron and I run a totally changed classroom, but I think we each run a different classroom than a lot of other teachers. And
Yeah.
and it's hard. It's hard to.
It is hard to change, but Joe, wouldn't you agree? And I now look at me and trying to sell it, but once we passed like 4 or 5 weeks, it started to get easier. I was surprised at how quickly it could change.
What surprised me was how quick the kids started to adapt to things.
Right.
And you talk about having online courses, and as adults, you know, we've taken online courses in college, and Ron and I had recently gotten into UDL, So we had been using videos in class, and I teach third grade. So it was, I started a lot different, probably where you might have started with high school students. But that's what was great was when we started that in September. So when we started pushing forth new instruction through the use of video, our kids already knew, well, number one, we weren't giving them a video for a third grader longer than 3.5 minutes.
Right.
Excuse me. But then, they would able to watch, pause, think about something, write something down, go back, review things. So that platform was already there. And that's, Ron and I have been pushing just ideas like this for a while, and people are like, yeah, that's great. Oh yeah, look at that. That's awesome. And now it's like, what do they say when it hits the fan? Like every Ron's phone was ringing off the hook.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The emails, which is great, because now it's like, ooh, Ron and I have been talking about this type of thing, just this type of teaching, definitely heavily for the past year. And now it's like people are starting to realize, man, it can work and it should work.
And it can be useful when we go back to the classroom.
Right.
Most definitely.
Right. One of my friends, George Porter, is a tech coach and a high school English teacher in my district. And he goes, I really think I'm going to start each class with this like 5-minute, 10-minute instructional video. If you've got it, you cut over here. If you don't have it, come on over here. But the amount of focus will be increased because the student is listening, watching. They can ask the questions. I can go over here and get more help, or nope, I got it. The decrease in any sort of behavioral distractions, instead of like, hey, I need everyone's attention. Everybody up here. Everybody. Nope. Hey, Sammy, Susie, come here. I need your attention. So those little lessons seem to be applicable to the everyday classroom. But I agree. My whole life for the first month was answering questions for teachers and it won't work. I can't hear the thing, I know it's the worst.
What I learned was, maybe I didn't run as good a classroom as I thought I did. So moving forward, like next year, when we do go back to the classroom, because I think that is inevitable, no matter how we get back there, to not necessarily have a schedule, but a to-do list. To where like these at 8 and 9 years old, they've shown, there was 2 assignments to do today. And some kids, and I don't know, maybe with high school kids, you didn't see this, but at 8 a.m., things are getting worked on and turned in, where some kids are doing it at lunch. We had one little girl that liked to sleep till 11:30, and she would get up and start, and it's like, why can't they do that? And if you teach them how to check this video out, if you got it, move on. Or for math, it's great. Take this pretest, which Ron, when did you show me that? Years ago, right? Yeah. I mean, take before we do chapter 4, any lesson, here's a chapter 4 test. If you can get an A on it, why do you need to sit through all of my lessons from 9:25 to 10, 07? Like that's
right for the next week and a half or 2 weeks. Oh my God, can you imagine as an adult?
The multiplication chapter, lesson 1, multiplying with 2, lesson 2, multiplying with 3, lesson 3, multiplying with 4.
And the poor kid's like, I got
there's 4 multiplication chapters.
Right.
So it's just, a matter of just revamping and relooking and giving those kids the opportunity to say, listen, if you can do it, do it. And now granted, they won't all be able to do it, but that's why you'll still be there to say, all right, so you need this, we'll call it a lecture or a mini lesson, a 10-minute mini lesson with me. But that's hard putting all those pieces into place, because now you have, I guess, projects or things you have to do for those kids that can get it and run with it. Which is why those, things like WeVideo, Google Sites, give them those opportunities to take it to the next level. But I mean, those are a lot of pieces to put. That's a big jigsaw to work with.
It is a big, and I know that especially as elementary school teachers, you do stations. Mm-hmm. This is totally foreign to us as secondary teachers, and so when I was, that's genius. So I could have somebody over here working on this, and I go, oh my gosh, you guys are so smart, and
they are smart. They're so smart.
They're so smart. And
Yep.
the students can help design those stations.
Yep.
Like, okay,
Right.
if you can multiply, like, I love the idea of allowing students to show how much self-management skills they really have by letting them be independent and letting them be at their own level, instead of trying to keep everyone quiet. So that
Right.
we can keep don't move, don't touch, don't do,
Right.
where are you going? Why are you doing that right now? I need you to sit down. Don't sharpen your pen. I need you to stop. Why don't you go outside
Yeah.
for just a bit, but showing them that they can manage themselves, that they are independent, that they are fully capable. And if they have a question, that you're there. But yes, as far as how are we keeping, I'm 35, I've had up to 41 students in a class. How do you keep
God.
not
How's that happen?
coming to California anymore, huh?
Not
yeah.
to teach.
Right. Yeah, you just come for vacation.
It's a nice place to visit, but
Wait, how big are the rooms? If you have to
Yeah.
put 41 kids, I mean, is it a standard size classroom?
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine.
Oh, you got to see my room. You're going to love it. But it's hard. It's crowded, and that's
Yeah.
of course a concern for right now.
Right.
But to let students feel capable instead of squashed, I guess.
Yeah.
Instead of limited, instead of compliant. I think those are questions worth asking, and solutions are worth finding and experimenting with, because that's going to be just so invaluable to the student too. That confidence, the life skills of having to manage yourself, it's huge.
And you talked about it. It's experimenting, right? Like, who knows? We're going to try it. We'll put this into place and see what happens. And if this works, great. Then we'll try and improve upon it. If it doesn't, then it's X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
You also have to be a teacher who's willing to reflect on their practice, right? Like, in order to experiment, if you're not going to reflect, I mean, it's a tough road. And I think the other thing I wanted to say was, like, like you were saying, Marissa, the life skill. I think a lot of times when it's so teacher driven, we're teaching learned helplessness.
Yes.
And I saw quite a bit of that come through in remote learning, where, students were almost waiting to ask me a question or typing a question into Google Classroom that they could have typed into Google and found the answer to, or went and saw a YouTube video.
So what's funny about that? So I'm not going to name names. My son had a really rough time with his science learning during remote learning. His teacher commented on a student, "Oh, thank Google for that answer, because I know you didn't read my article."
Oh.
I nearly shit a brick, and I don't like to talk like that. I don't like to curse on, but holy smokes.
Yeah.
I wanted to pick up the phone and I'm like, wait a minute, can you reply with an emoji? Like, give her the middle finger. Like, what are you kidding me?
Actually, the poop.
Right.
I could not believe. And my son's going to graduate, and there's a good chance that she's going to be at the graduation. And I really hope I can hold my tongue and to not just say, like, you're killing kids. Like, I would much rather, and I do teacher trainings. I'm not going to watch an hour and 40-minute video to get 10 answers. I just think that's ridiculous. And it's a science class, and they have to read an article. How many ways can you get an answer?
Right.
I mean, Ron, you watch a video, right? You listen to a podcast. When I saw that comment, I'm like, Lord help me, because I want to strangle someone. Like, how can?
But like you said, that's exactly what they should be doing. They didn't know. Right. They went and they looked it up.
I could not believe it.
Right?
Because you're a fool if you're not using the device around you. Right. Yeah. So and that's it. It's her practice or his practice needs to change.
Yep.
Because if I can Google the answer,
right,
it's not learning.
and when he was in class, I mean, I think things were a lot different. So I don't want to. That's another thing. Like, I'm trying to think, like, this was a tough experience. So I understand. You know what? Here's an article. Read it. Answer these questions. But if they do that, and and you don't specifically provide a rubric that says find the answers in this article or spend 15 minutes reading this article, then answer these, like it just that was heartbreaking to see that. And I'm sure, well, let's just say, like, hopefully that's the only situation like that out there. But I think more than ever, I want to get this lady a teacher note shirt and say, like, look, lady, wear the shirt, or not
Listen
even
to the podcast.
I don't, you know what? Maybe I shouldn't even say that, because there's probably a lot of other great teachers out there, or, you know, maybe not even listen to, get on Twitter. Holy smokes. Like get some better PD, because that response to an 8th grade student on the last day of school, when you return things back, like, oh man, I was
that doesn't
hot.
do it.
No.
Yeah, that doesn't. And where's the thinking in that? You know, where's the growth in that? Where's the encouragement or liking school in that?
It wasn't the last day. Why would that kid want to come back and do anything above and beyond for that teacher? Like, what relationship is made there?
Right.
Like my assignments end all be all, and I was just, and
it was so end all be all that you could just Google the answer.
right.
You know, so and for me, I'm all about. I mean, I'm an English teacher. I'm all about read it.
Right.
But I'm done with the finding the little things in it to prove that you read it. So I got rid of that years ago, and it's more, what do you think? And do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? Why? What do what are you seeing out in the world that's connected? Whatever. Yeah. But it's asking the questions and really being interested in their answers. Yeah. But yes, if you're so into
your own assignments, right? Like,
something's wrong. But I love that you said, Joe, earlier you said, you know, maybe my class wasn't as, what did you say? Like as effective or efficient, something as good as I had wanted it to be or hoped it would be.
Or like up to date, or, you know.
Something. But I mean, that's the reflection that we need.
Right.
And so often, you know, I speak and I do my posts or whatever. When I do my blog post, it's always, is this perfect? No. Does it work? Works for now.
Right.
Is it going to be better later? I hope so.
Yep,
you know, and if so, I'll send it back. But even in my presentations, I'll do 40 minutes of like, this is my idea. This is what totally failed. Here are the materials. Here are how other teachers have made it better. Go make it better for you. Go make it better for your kids. Go keep making it better. Please don't go into a PD situation or read a blog post and go like, oh, there's the answer, the only answer, as though you've Googled it and it's ready to put on your little thing. But just, you have to go make it better.
Right.
Every time.
Yeah. Right. And that's the one thing I enjoy my middle school teachers, or my middle school students, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students, I see once a week for the entire year.
Okay.
And then my middle school students, I see every day for a marking period.
Okay.
So I get to do something with my first marking period students, and then the next marking period, I get to adjust it, you know, which just it's so refreshing, so that by the end of the year, I've had 3 iterations or 2 other iterations of that lesson or that unit, which is
you ever
almost
get that
like
teacher guilt? You ever get that teacher guilt?
I do, of like how I bombed the first marking period, and you know, or like I'll at times be like, oh, how was I grading the first marking period? How is that fair to? Which just goes to show that the grading itself isn't fair, right? Like, you know, it should be, did you learn? Right. And I'm sure the kids in the first marking period learned. Maybe the others learned more, but that was on me. But
I posted some pictures. The guilt and that first period guilt for those of us who have like but I posted pictures of my kids working in the classroom or some classroom itself, and a former student who's now, gosh, she's like 25. He's like, what the heck? What's in the classroom? And I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, you don't even understand. And
sorry.
I know, I'm so sorry. I was such a bad teacher. And I was like, actually, they don't even have quizzes and tests anymore. He's like, you know, what are you talking about? I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry for what I did to you.
You know what I hear? My first year, I was lucky enough when I first got hired to be in one of the what do they call those, a cohort who were getting smart boards. So get a smart board. What do? I designed spelling baseball. So now those kids that I had my first year, they're like, oh, do you still play spelling baseball? I say, buddy, don't even do spelling anymore. Like, no weekly spelling test. You don't play
Right?
spelling baseball. I'm like,
Yeah. Do you still teach the preposition song?
Well,
And I'm
right,
like, I don't.
they'll come in the room and we now have tables. You know, we got rid of all our desks and we got tables and we were working on different seating and the kids even from like previous years come in, they're like, this place looks so much better now.
Yeah, like what the heck?
And that's like the same thing. So I might not have first marking period or first period remorse, but like I definitely see like, man, how much I've changed over the course of the couple years, and like each year keeps getting better and better. And those first couple years, kids, I'm like, man, I was just surviving, you know.
Yeah, right.
I was just trying to get to lunch.
I've never really thought about it, but I think maybe that's a really good temperature check. Is if you don't have teacher guilt from first period to fifth period, or you don't have it marking period or year to year, you may not
Something's
be
wrong.
reflecting quite. Yeah, because man, I was at a meeting, a district meeting recently, and we were talking about trying to be creative, and and I said, oh gosh, PBL, so many of my projects fail, and a couple teachers turned around, and they're like, I'm so glad you just said that.
Right.
And I'm like, oh, I share the stuff that works and I'll tell you what got me there. But I mean, the number of failings that get me to what's working, and I think that's, so I do try to also share like, hey, guess what? This bombed,
Oh yeah.
But
that's a tough one to do. Share those failures. It's a tough thing.
Yeah, but I even think even if we don't sit there and go into like the details of it, because I don't want to waste anybody's time either.
Right.
Like, hey, you know what? Why don't you read this thing that totally doesn't work?
Right.
But at least like, hey, this does work, and these were some of the steps that I had to get through, and some of those growing pains. But I think we just kind of hit on something that if you don't have that teacher guilt from first period to fifth period, or marking period, or by grades, or by years, that maybe we're not doing enough reflection.
Yeah. Well, you think everything you'd always get a little bit better, right? I mean, I remember when I was first, right before I was waiting tables, right before I got a full-time position, and my buddies and his wife came out to dinner, and she was a teacher, and she was talking about her friend, and she goes, do you know she makes different lesson plans every year? And I looked at her, I went, so? She goes, I don't know why you just don't use the same lesson plan. I went, I said, okay. And I started to get into it. And it probably doesn't help that I'm a scatterbrain, and like I thrive in disorganization. It'll be a hot mess, but I know my mess. I know where things are. So like that's one of the reasons I can't do the same thing every year, because like I don't know where stuff is. Like I don't really it's not me. I think you have to push it and push yourself to, what do we say, Ron, right? 1% better.
Yeah.
Like just a little bit better every day, and tweak it every year.
Yep.
One of my colleagues has a rule, and I loved it. She, as I started kind of, because I did the whole subversive teaching thing for a while, where like no one really knew what was going on. It was very Mission Impossible, whatever. Right. And then I started to kind of share what I was doing. And so people started kind of coming out of the woodwork a little, and just like, hey, just so you know, I try stuff too. I'm like, you do? And it's all secretive. And she comes and she goes, my rule is I try at least one new thing per unit every year. And I was like, that's kind of genius, as far as like just a little
That's
bit.
Simple, right? Like, yeah.
It's simple. Yeah. And especially if it's something that can be adapted and it's not so unit or topic specific, but like I could use it with this or this or this, and then now you have all these tools at your disposal.
Yeah. And I think sometimes you can be one extreme or the other like that. Like, so it's funny, Joe knows this. My wife calls me a t-shirt buyer. So like if I get excited about something, I want to buy a t-shirt, like
it's better than tattoos, really going all out, get the t-shirt and just see how it goes.
But like when new things come, like I want to try that. And I found that starting to get overwhelming, where I have too many irons in the fire.
Right. Whereas
this year, I decided I'm going to focus on one specific thing that I am trying to bring into my lessons or focus on. And that made a huge difference, because I was able to reflect better
Yeah.
on it because it was just one thing.
Right.
And I think that is helpful to just do one thing. Everybody can try one thing.
Yes. There's a quote for you. Get that too.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Put that on a
Everybody can at
t-shirt.
least try
That's
one
right.
thing.
Yeah, I like it.
So I guess of this experience, and all these things, what would you say are some of the most useful things you're going to start to bring back into the classroom, or some of the most important discussions that you think we should have moving forward as educators in general, like, just across the board?
Well, in no particular order.
Yeah, no.
Okay, good. Because I don't want it to have one has weight and one doesn't.
Right.
So, can you tell that I'm? So, I think it's exceptionally important that we talk about biases, and we talk about equity, and we talk about the systems that we've had in place and why they're fair or not fair or do no harm. The fact that we can even label things as do no harm definitely says that we acknowledge there is harm.
Right.
We have to have those conversations. But anytime we have a conversation that starts to talk about rightfully dismantling systems that are in place that are keeping individuals and communities and our whole country back, we have to offer temporary ideas, right? Not the ultimate solution, and like that's not going to work, so we're not going to try it. It's the iteration process of like we keep trying 1% better, 1% better, instead of finding the 100% solution right now that will be permanent, that will always work. I don't know that it exists, but I also don't think that we don't try.
Right.
Well,
could
it exist with each year, right? You get different kids, right? Different kids, and things change on a daily basis for those kids. I think it's and it kind of goes back to relationships, right? You have to know who you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Right. And you have to know yourself. And your life experience and why and what's your background and why it's like that and what
and what your biases are that you're bringing. I mean, I just put out this weekend, like, I'm watching people tear down Confederate monuments and things like that. And my job out of college, my first 4 years was I worked as an archaeologist. I am a history person. So when people would say like, oh, I want to tear down these monuments, I'm like, this is history. And then as you start to reflect on, but it wasn't put up for the history purpose.
Remember, right?
Right. Like it wasn't put up for that. And if I have to drive by that every day, knowing the hate that was put up with and why it's there, it's got to come down.
Yes, and when it was put up, and what was going on in history when it was put up, because it wasn't put up at the time of, it was put up quite recently in the grand scheme, and why it was,
and so, like, my perspective on that, again, it's a matter of reflection, right? Like, my perspective has vastly changed on things like that.
Yeah, but even it's such a small thing, but it is a thing, is like, the attire a student wears,
right,
and the assumptions you might make about a student.
Sure.
And then I think when I have opened up what students can do in the classroom and what my role is, that has adjusted the strength of biases that I didn't even know were there. Right. And so they've lessened a lot, but it also made me aware that I had the biases in the first place. So, and totally unintentionally, I would verbally tell you like, no, of course not. But I didn't know. So those kinds of trainings I think are really important. But I do think instead of finding the perfect solution, trying the damn near perfect that as close as we can get right now, and let's try it and fix it and fix it and fix it. So
get the best solution for right now.
Yes. And then know that it's not permanent.
Right. And we need
Yep.
to reevaluate and
Yes. So every time that we put in some sort of a new system, and same thing, like whenever I say like, you should try something, I mean, you should try it for like a week or a
Right.
unit or a quarter. And then in our plan, we are reflecting on this date. We're reiterating, we're bringing everybody in. We're going to see if we can make adjustments. So it's, that's what I mean by temporary. I don't mean that we should get rid of improvements. So I think that as an English teacher, looking at the literature and what we do with literature and why we select books,
Right.
I have to say the books that I used to be required to teach are the same books that I read in high school, that my parents read in high school, that it's, why are we doing this?
Right.
And what are our ultimate goals? What really matters? And what are we trying to teach? And is our literature supporting that? And
Joe and I did a podcast with a woman who's her focus is LGBTQ plus students.
Yeah.
And I mean, both of us after that podcast were like, our classroom's got to change. Like what we have in our library.
Yep.
Yeah. Library's got to change. Yeah.
I just put up a simple, and I went to the administration. I said, look, I just want to put this up in my classroom. It was a simple rainbow triangle.
Yep.
And it just said like, this is a safe space. Just hung it in my classroom.
Yeah.
And just that, you could almost see some kids come in and just like a relief come over their face.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been working with, I've had probably that have come out to me. I've had probably 5 or 6 students, transgender students. And I'm thankful for the trainings that I had prior to having those students come out to me. I am thankful for that. I'm thankful for the students' patience with me. Mm-hmm. I'm fully supportive of LGBTQ, fully supportive of equal rights for all people. But as far as things I wouldn't have thought, like, do I call you by the name on your birth certificate with your parents, or in front of other teachers, or in front of other students? Do you want me to intervene when a student says something? Do you want to handle it? Do you want to ignore that it's happened? What do you want to have happen? And I definitely don't want to ignore it, but I also don't want to bring it to the attention of the student,
Right.
So things as far as equity, it has to happen. The trainings have to happen. The literature has to happen. Everything needs to be more, not only representative, but so much more relevant to the world that we live in, and the world that it doesn't all have to be happy literature, that's for sure, because I want to be able to say, do you want to live like this?
Well,
Is this the kind of world you want?
You need literature that's going to spark conversation, right? Yeah. Like it's not all rainbows and lollipops.
No.
And and again, that's a high school, right? Like, it's not going to be the same conversation in 3rd grade.
Right.
But you can introduce diversity.
Well, our conversation in 3rd grade might be like, yes, a girl can have a football catch with the boys, or we had girls that wanted to play lacrosse the same way the boys played lacrosse. Yeah. Like they're like, it's not fair. I want to hit somebody. I'm like, girl, me too.
Knock that kid out. Yeah, go for it.
No.
I mean,
but like that to me, that's a start, because then they start saying, well, why is it like that? Like that's not fair. Like, you know what? You're right. Fair. That's not fair. Let's run with that and see where it goes.
Yeah. And that's another, I have to say, that phrase that that's not fair. I flashed to my daughter, 6 years old. And obviously my teaching is informing my parenting, and my parenting is informing my teaching. Yep. It's very interesting to watch that go around. But this also is one of those improvements where I think there's right now, or at least when I first started teaching, and maybe not, it was just my perspective, is that education, I'm using my air quotes for the people that are just listening, I'm using air quotes. Education, or the school experience, was teacher versus student, or student versus teacher, or it was at least perceived that way by some of the people involved. And I don't want to be verses.
Right.
So that increased respect and tone and is so important. My 6-year-old a couple months ago spoke to me in a tone that I would usually use in correcting her behavior. And she gave me that tone. I was like, don't you use that tone with, they'll say the line.
Right. Yeah.
And she goes, you talk to me that way. And I was like, she goes, that's not fair. You get to talk to me that way and I don't get to talk to you that way. And it took everything in me, and like my teacher self came in and was like,
Right.
you're right. I will think about that.
Yeah.
Can't promise anything, but
you're still wrong in your behavior, but
Right.
how I talk to you is different. So that's been one of the things that I've been thanked for in the last few years from students is you don't talk to me like I'm a little kid.
I forget where I read it. It was a quote that they said, the way you talk to your kids and your students becomes their inner voice. And I do, like I have a son, and I think about it all the time because I want him to do well and I want him to be successful. But, as a 13 or 14-year-old boy, sometimes that's hard to remember.
Yeah.
That's tough. That's tough. But like you said, like to treat them like, I mean, not as an,
like people, Joe.
No, because we don't like people.
No,
but like
people.
Like just a person.
Yeah.
Just a person. And I deal with 8-year-olds, but I treat them like and I can't say that when I started, like I wasn't not a yeller, but like I would.
You had a teacher voice.
I had a teacher voice. Definitely had that teacher voice. Where in the past couple years, I don't think I've ever used my teacher's voice.
Yeah.
And I might tell them, like, all right, guys, Mr. DePaulo's now got to get on a soapbox and talk to you about some things. But it's never, it's never like, let me tell you something about
it's
your
talk
behavior.
to you about some things, not talk at you about some things, right? Like that's the difference.
Yes, or
we're having a conversation
about some things. Yeah. Right. And I think that is an interesting thing that I think we need to explore, reflect on, bring with us. But my last one would be, and it's always interesting as I do this in my presentations as well, is in regards to the ultimate skill. So a lot of when I first started, I think the ultimate skill was synthesize, or maybe it was analyze, then it was evaluate, then the ultimate skill you could do was synthesize, and like it keeps adding. And now the ultimate skill is create. And I totally get it, and I appreciate that. And I do want students creating. I want them creating a lot more. But I think I want to go one more, which is yes, analyze, yes, evaluate, yes, synthesize your own thoughts, not just their thoughts, and create something to communicate what you're thinking to the world for different audiences. But also to then not just create, but communicate your creation. So here's my process. Here's what I was intending to do. Here's the audience. Here's why I did it this way. Here are the failures that I encountered. Here's what I want to do next. And here's the hope, what the effect that I hope my creation has on its intended audience. So not just create it, but communicate everything that goes along with that creative process, and your intention is, I think, where we need to go. Because when I think about the different paths that the students will go on, and they have to give a presentation, or they have to explain their idea, they have to fully explain it, not just be like, here you go, here's my finished product.
Right.
It's everything else.
That's a good point. I mean, I think like that was one of my main things, like not being in school for my 8th grade class was, I said, I want you guys to be creating content, right?
Yeah.
So talk to your parents. If you can create a social media account at your age, try and create a social media account. Find your passion. I had some amazing stuff come out. And what was even better than some of the stuff coming out was some of the messages I got from students. Like one was just thanking me for getting her to start to think. She said, I am looking at things that are political now. I am looking at things that I think are unjust and unfair. And I am putting it out there to the world that I think it's unjust and unfair. And I want to be part of the change and I want to have a voice in it. Like if I said, like, I could just mic drop, I'm done. Like that's like,
you can retire right now.
I'm happy with my life.
Yep.
If that, you know, and she is a student who, you know, I said to her, like, you are a powerful young woman who can get people to listen up. You know, I said, you're graduating 8th grade, but I said, you remind me of some of the kids I saw coming out of Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School after the shooting,
Right.
like who you can get people to turn their heads. And that's it. Like if you can just thinkers, right? Like
imagine if you can hone those skills at 13 years old, and then what you can do by the time that you enter the world of work.
Right.
I totally agree. And I think I got rid of tests. I got rid of quizzes. I got rid of all these other assignments, and everything is creating and collaborating and agile planning and who's your intended audience and how is that going to work for them and what are you trying to say and what do you think. But I leave almost everything open, and that allows for that creativity, but also that struggle of needing to improve 1% and like where do I find that and Google it and
and not turning something in. Everybody's so used to turning something in and it's done, right? Like I turn in my test, it's done. I turn in my project, it's done. When you hand it back and go, you know, I'll say reflect on it and don't tell me there's nothing you would change, because you can always change something, you know. And I say that doesn't mean you don't put something out, right? Like if Joe and I waited for a podcast episode to be perfect, nothing would have ever come out. Right. But when we listen to our first episodes to now, there is vast improvement upon what we've done, you know. So having that ability to just, it's not done. It's just a step in the process.
Yes. And really talking about what's your purpose. So, I mean, yes, it's not done, but my purpose is this. And so here I'm offering it to the audience for that purpose and to further something along. It's huge, but there's a respect to, you offered that student an opportunity to be herself, to hone some skills that'll be good for her, to be able to communicate beyond an assignment. There's a massive amount of respect in offering that to the student.
Right.
But
unfortunately though, you know, unfortunately in our normal, you know, and again, like you were saying, I'm using air quotes for people.
Yeah.
We're so in a box with like web filters and this, that I could have never given that as an assignment, because they couldn't create a social media account. They couldn't, you know, our students can't use phones or any devices other than their Chromebooks. In class.
They're going to have to get over that. But I mean, those are also those things of like, what are we going to learn from this time period? They can do it. If their parents say it's okay for them to use their social media to do it, let the parents monitor it.
Right.
They should be able to my kids use their phones every day. They don't put them away.
Well, right. And how can I teach, you know, as a technology teacher, one of my things is teaching digital citizenship.
Yeah.
How can I teach you to digital citizenship if you can't use anything digital, right? Like we're talking about your digital footprint. Well, you're not allowed to create a digital footprint. So let me just tell you some horror stories.
Yeah. Does every teacher in your district allow that? Oh, am I not coming in?
No, you are. I'm just laughing at you.
No, because you know, like I don't know if the district has an overall policy, like no cell phones out. Because that's a problem, right? Kids don't know what to do. I could use it in this class. I'm not allowed to use it in this class.
Right.
Some teachers will tell me to put it away. Some teachers will write me right up, like right, like
no. I know, it's so funny, right? Like using phone. Okay, well,
right.
Do you have any idea how many times I'm using my phone?
Right.
In the meeting, I'm like, I'm sitting here talking to you guys. I'm like, hey, I can't talk right. You know,
right.
I'm multitasking. I have shit to do. Like my students, they can use their phones, And so we talk about it. I was like, look, when I'm in a meeting and it's a staff meeting and a text comes through from my husband, I'm going to respond and put it down because I need to pay attention.
Right.
It's part
so
of being
you're
a
teaching
professional.
them a skill.
Yes.
Right. Like
you
that's
have,
right.
you have to manage. We talk a lot about, it's not about self-control. It's about self-management.
Right.
And so I do talk to them about it. Do we have kids that like really struggle with their phones? Yeah. And it even got to the point where, and I will not say the student's name, but if my students ever heard this, they'd be cracking up.
They know exactly.
Oh my gosh. They're like the whole class. There is a student who would rack up 14 hours on their phone. Like you could see their, And so 14 hours is a long time. I was like, how do you feel about that? And so we would have that conversation. I'm like, that's pretty much all of your waking hours.
Right.
You're on your phone. At what point is this your world versus this is your world out here? And
but it allowed you to have that conversation.
Yes. And she set a goal like, all right, I see your 14 hours. I'm going to work on it. It's going to be 10 hours next week. And she got down to like 6 hours. She cut it in more than half.
Yeah.
Yes. And so but to have that conversation with my students also, there are some apps that are just freaking easier on your phone.
Yeah.
Right.
I use iMovie to make a video. I'm not going to get something on like iMovie's easy. Just do it. It already, it automatically links up to Drive and to YouTube. Don't worry about it. Why are we limiting them from tools that they have at their disposal, especially when we're talking about the digital divide?
Yep.
It's so many of my students, regardless of their economic status, have a phone, and there are apps available to them. Teach them how to use it to their benefit.
Yeah. And I think the other thing, like we're in a small district and our digital policy is the same kindergarten to 8th grade, right? So the rights don't change. So, but maybe there should be a talk of, hey, you know what, when you get into middle school, we need, granted, we don't want a 3rd grader making a Twitter and Instagram account, right? Like
probably not,
right? But an 8th grade. Well, yeah, maybe, right?
But you know what? In 3rd grade, you have them make the videos, and you start a classroom Instagram account, right? Like
right.
So there's scaffolding that you do, right? But in 8th grade, like that was the thing with my project. It was we talked about you are a brand, like Nike, like Adidas, like Amazon.
Yeah.
You can damage your brand or you can build your brand to something unbelievable.
Yeah.
So let's talk about how do we build your brand? How do we,
Yeah, I use the story I was trying to tell my students. I go, do you think that I have a 4-year-old and a 6-year-old, and I'm looking at care.com, and some of you are on care.com. I'm absolutely checking Twitter, Facebook. I'm Googling you. I'm going to just leave you here with my car keys, my house keys, my 2 children, and like all my, no, and I go, do you really think, like, do me a favor, everybody, and they all do it, right? I'm like, get onto your social media and tell me, am I hiring you? Right. Am I adding you to, because a lot of my students are athletes and aspiring college and professional athletes. Am I putting you on the team?
Right. Do I want you representing my university?
Right. I don't need those problems. I don't, absolutely not. So some of them are, you can't have those conversations though if I start saying things like, you can't use your phone. I also give them a hard time because like Snapchat, they're all looking up each other's noses. And I'm like, honestly, at this point, you're just really weird. Right. But if you need to look up people's noses and that's your thing, then you go right ahead. So, but no, they use them and they put them away. Some kids struggle, but then you have that conversation with them or with the family or whatever. Yeah. But no, we need to, if anything that we notice is that kids are far more capable of being independent when given the opportunity to, the tools, and someone to support them in that process. So we need to open things up, not close it down.
Yeah. And I hope that, I've been even brainstorming since school and like, how can I keep this going if it goes back to normal? Is it like a lunchtime during 8th grade's lunch? Do we have a digital leadership group that's a voluntary, you can sign up, that we, but
I'm playing with an idea right now. I'm playing with an idea, and we should have this conversation in a few weeks after I make it. But Yeah, I think we might be doing a kind of like, you know how you can get Google certified?
Right.
Mhm.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Like badges and
We're going to have badges,
yep.
3 different levels, starting from kindergarten,
Yep.
early elementary, kind of upper elementary, middle
Yep.
school, whatever, high school, and then having a student-led, student-created virtual conference for students and for teachers. And they will have created the videos, the PD, the slideshows. They will, all the different skills they will have practiced, their speaking skills, their intended audience, all of
Yep.
those things would be in it. And then the students that are in that third level, they're creating content, and they could get, because in all of our wisdom, we are still requiring community service hours while everything is shut down. So, like, well done, everybody. We've thought that one through. So, but they could create content to help teachers or to help students, tutorials and videos
Right.
and whatever. So, and they could get community service hours for that. So
That'd be awesome.
I'm playing with some things, but we'll keep in touch and figure this
Yeah,
out.
yeah.
I mean, hopefully together, right?
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the Teacher Nerds podcast. Keep up with every new episode by subscribing on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Anchor, or anywhere you listen. Remember to visit teachernerds.com, and that's nerds with a Z. Follow us on Twitter @TeacherNerds and on Instagram @TeacherNerdsPodcast. And thank you for being one of the Teacher Nerds.